Alright, so welcome back everybody. So for this video, I want to share with you all my top 10 favorite critter powers from Everdell. Now that the Everdell New Leaf expansion and Mistwood expansion have been out for a while now, I think mostly everyone's gotten a chance to try out at least most of the new player powers by now. So I'm going to share my top 10. So let's get started. And the first critter power that makes it to my top 10, number 10, are the Toads critter power. They are my top 10 favorite. So this is, I really like activating green production. And so, you know, a critter power that lets me activate green production is pretty cool. So when you play a green production, you may discard one card to activate that green production twice. That's a pretty cool power. As long as you have lots of spare cards you don't think you're going to utilize, that's a good way of discarding cards, getting to activate another green production, the same one, twice. So getting deactivated twice could be quite useful depending on what it is. Like if it was the mine, you'd be getting 2 pebbles every time you played, so that you'd get 2 pebbles the first time you played that mine, obviously. Because it's only when you play that green production. But obviously, since this is a power that you have at the beginning of the game, whatever you play first, green production-wise, if you have a card to discard, which I would recommend discarding anyways, even if you might be using it, you can always get it later if it's a common one anyway. Getting to activate a green production is just awesome. It's just awesome getting to do it twice. That's pretty cool. So whenever you play a green production. So if you played this in autumn, you played a green production in autumn, then you get to activate it twice by discarding a card. So it still makes it somewhat useful playing a green production in autumn. Not that you would want to do that, but you know, it gives you an option. It gives you some options for sure, how you and when you play green production cards. So that's my number 10, the Toads. My number 9 are the Owls. They are my number 9 favorite critter power. So first of all, you get to increase your hand size limit by 1. So it's 8 cards is your hand limit. So then the Owls, their hand limit is 9, which is nice. And there's some critter powers that will increase your hand limit much more than that. But 1 is nice. One additional card you can have is nice. But then after you place a worker and resolve the action, you may discard 1 card from your hand. So, hey, this is a good way of getting rid of cards you don't want to get better cards, right? So you can discard a card from your hand and draw a card, or you can just draw a card. So if you don't have any cards you want to discard, you can just simply draw a card. If you have a card you want to discard so you can draw more cards, you can discard a card from your hand too. So you can do both or one or the other, or, you know, and or. So, then if you draw that 1 card, then you can keep that card that you drew, or you can give it away to an opponent. So let's say you didn't like it very much, to draw 2 cards if you gave it away. So hey, you get a card, you didn't like it that much, that's a good way of giving it to another player. Sure, I'll gift it to somebody else to draw 2 more cards. No brainer. Awesome ability. So that's why the Owls are my 9th favorite critter power. Okay, so the Platypus is my number 8 critter power. Platypus. So at the beginning of the game, you get to place 5 victory point tokens on this power. And then any time on your turn, you may pay up to 1 of these point tokens to gain a resource of your choice and draw 1 card from the deck or the meadow. So this is awesome because, for one thing, if you forget to use your power, or you just simply don't want to use it, you're getting 5 extra victory points at the end of the game. That's awesome. That's pretty cool. Now, let's say you do use it, or some of it. Maybe you don't use all of the power. You're still going to get some extra victory points if you don't use it 5 times. That's nice. But if you use it 5 times, you're basically getting 5 additional resources of your choice and 5 additional cards. And you get to draw from the meadow too. So this is a perfect timing card. If there's a card in the meadow that you must have, and you don't want somebody else getting it, you know, you don't have the resources to play it right now. So you're worried that somebody else will beat you to the punch. This is a good one to do because you can do it at any time during your turn. Anytime during your turn, you can pay up to one of these to not only draw that card from the meadow, but to gain a resource of your choice too. Super fantastic. Awesome card. The Platypus. And that's why the Platypus is my number 8. Okay, my number 7 are the cats. Whoops. So the cats are my 7th favorite critter power. So the cats are bossy. And so you may send a worker to any basic location, forest location, or a red destination already occupied by an opponent. Or red destination already occupied by an opponent. So that's pretty cool. It basically means you don't have to worry about your opponents taking up places. That's awesome. That's always an issue. When you've got opponents and they're taking up all the good spots that you want to go to, they've blocked you from going there. You don't know when you're going to be able to go there again. If you have the cat power, you get the cat's power, you get to ignore that. You can go to any location that they're at, basically, and to those, like, let's say you played a post office and an inn so that you could utilize the location. But someone beat you to the punch, they took your location from you, they're utilizing it, and so now you don't get to use the post office to your advantage because they're using it. But if you have the cat's ability, well, if you're the cats, then you get to ignore that because you're the boss, you're bossy. That's cool. That is why the cat's power, the cat's critter power is my number 6 favorite critter power. Okay, my number 5 is the honeybees. So here we go, honeybees. Another one of those critter powers that get to activate green production cards. So whenever you play a non-green critter or construction card, so purple, as in purple prosperity, this works with red destination, blue governance, and tan traveler. It does not work if you play a green production. That's what it's saying, non-green. You may discard one card to activate a green production card in your city. That's useful. Okay, that makes it so that way you might have played a couple of green production cards in the beginning of the game, like you should at least have a couple of those, right? Because it's an engine building game. But you're going to want to branch out. You're going to want to have red destination. You're definitely going to want to have some blue governance if you can. Purple prosperity at the end for sure. And 10 travelers possibly somewhere in between. And so if you have if you discard a card, you get to activate a green production card in your city. That's cool. That means you could use this ability several times during the course of the game. Even if you put only, like, let's say 4 is a good number for green production cards. Let's say you had just 4 green production cards in your city. You could potentially play a few more cards before autumn and get to activate this ability to activate some green production in your city a few times, easily, potentially. It's not impossible to play 10 cards before autumn. Often the case, I usually have 10 or 11 cards already in my city before autumn. That means some awesome combos. That means some additional green production I get to activate several times potentially. And I got a choice. If I've got several, I've got choices. But this ability, why I keep saying autumn, you can't use this ability once it's autumn. So it's only for summer, winter, and spring. Those 3 seasons only, just those. Still, that's powerful. Very powerful for sure. Honeybees, a very interesting, cool green production power. That's why they are my number 6, right? Let's see, 3, 4, yeah, my number 6. So my number 5, my 5th favorite power is the butterflies. So they're my 5th favorite power, critter power. So with the butterflies, your hand size limit increases by 4. So your hand size limit is 12 instead of 8. That's awesome. That's a lot of cards. But that's not it. That's not all. Begin the game with 12 cards in your hand. Oh, that's amazing. You get to start with 12 cards in your hand. Now you're probably thinking, usually you don't get to start with that many cards, or you don't usually get a lot of cards if you're going first, right? Well, you also are the first player. So if you play the butterflies, you're going first. You have the pick of the place. You can pick the first location to place a worker down to get resources. That's awesome. That's awesome. So you get to go first. Not only do you get to go first, but your hand size limit is huge, and you get to start with a full set of cards in your hand. Of course, if you're playing with 5 or 6 players, you only get to start with 11. But who cares? 11 or 12 doesn't matter. That's amazing. Awesome. So that's why they're my number 5. They're my 5th favorite power, the butterflies. Okay. The snails. The snails are my number 4th favorite critter power. Cool. This is another grain production power ability. During setup, draw 7 cards and place them in a face down stack. So you don't know what those 7 cards are. Okay? Doesn't matter, because you're not going to be using those 7 cards at all anyway. And yes, you could potentially be giving your friends, your opponents, some good cards potentially. But it's worth it still. When an opponent plays a grain production, you may give them a card from this stack to also activate their grain production for yourself. That's amazing. So let's say you're not really going heavy on the grain production route. Okay, maybe you've got a couple of them, but you're not going heavy with grain production. You're focusing on blue governance or red destination, tan traveler, right? So this makes it super useful because you get to activate your opponent's grain productions for yourself. That's awesome. That is cool. And the only thing you're doing is you're giving them a card, which isn't even from your hand. So not only are you not discarding a card for this power, you're giving them a card that you can't use anyways because it's part of a face down stack just to give to them, so that way you can activate their grain production card. That's amazing. Awesome power. That's a cool, steady ability for sure. And that's why they're my number 4. 4th favorite critter power. All right. All right, so the bats. The bats are my number 3, my 3rd favorite critter power. So here's the bats. Okay, so whenever you play a card, into your city, you may take 1 card from the meadow, okay, and place it face down in a stack by your city. So that's cool. So this is awesome ability because when you play a card, you're getting to take a card from the meadow. It could be useful. It might not be. There might not be anything worthwhile taking from the meadow, but then there usually is, right? So either or, doesn't matter. Then it's going to go into you're going to place it in a face down in a stack by my city. You may play any card from this stack as though if it were your hand, the meadow, or the station. So that's really cool. So basically, you've got a second hand of cards that has no hand limit. You could easily have like several cards in there, 8 cards, 9 cards that you haven't played potentially, but you can play it as if it was from your hand, the meadow, or the station, which is amazing. Because when you think about it, there are cards like the inn, for instance, that let you pay 3 resources less if you play a card from the meadow, right? Well, this is saying that you get to play it as if it was from the meadow. So you could actually utilize the inability for that face down stack of cards by your city with the bats ability and pay the 3 resources fewer. That's amazing. It also works with the station too. So if you're playing with the train station, you can play it as if you were playing the station too. That's amazing. That's awesome. And of course, you can still play it as if it's in your hand. There are other ways that could be useful too, obviously. So yes, the bats. That's why the bats are my 3rd favorite power. Not only are you setting aside that card from the meadow for later, potentially to play it later, but you could potentially play it for resources fewer depending on how you were to play it. That's amazing. I love that. The bats. Who knew they would be so good at archiving cards? Awesome. Awesome power. Awesome ability. Perfect. I love that. So 3rd favorite power. Okay, the 2nd favorite power are the Exotos. Now these last two particular critters have some unique powers for sure. So at the beginning of the game, place one resource token, and we'll show you what that is in a moment, on each basic location. So let me show you them. So these are the tokens that it's talking about. There are 8 of these, and you get to place them at each of the 8 basic locations, okay? Whenever you visit one of those basic locations, also gain a resource from that location of your choice. So let's say this is at the 3 twigs. You go to the 3 twigs, and this token is there. You get a resource of your choice plus the 3 twigs. Awesome. Amazing, right? That's cool. So this is cool because usually when you play the game, your opponents, they're gonna go to the forest locations first, usually, because they're the best locations. They give off the best resources, usually, or the best ways of doing things. And so this gives you a reason to go to the basic locations first, because not only you're getting a ton of resources, potentially, but you're getting another resource of your choice in addition to what you're doing. That's amazing. So it basically means, hey, I'm going to be going to the basic locations throughout the game, unless there is a forest location I want to utilize. There might be some good forest locations too, but this makes it worthwhile to go to the basic locations while your opponents are focusing on the forest locations. It's awesome. It's an amazing ability. Super fantastic. You're basically getting 8 potential free resources if you go to all 8 locations during the game. Of course, once you've utilized the resource from that location, then it's gone for good for that location, so you'll never get to do it again from that location. But still, awesome. Awesome ability, and that's why the Exotos are my second favorite critter power. And finally, my favorite critter power to this day are the lizards. Okay? So, I'm not going to get the cards out, but mostly everyone knows what a forest location is. Begin the game with the unused forest locations in a shuffled face-down deck. And at the beginning of each season, draw 3 of them and choose one to play in your area, placing the other 2 at the bottom of the deck. You alone may visit these forest locations. Sorry about that. So, what's really cool is there's a lot of forest locations in this game, and you're never going to play with all of them because there's just so many. And the forest locations are powerful. They make it easier to get certain resources, like one such forest location will let you get 2 resources of your choice for going there. That's awesome. And if you're playing with that one, hey, then everyone else has access to it, and that means you have to fight for it. And sometimes you're not going to get it, right? So there's a lot of good forest locations, but you're also fighting for them, and that makes it difficult to enjoy and go to all the forest locations that you would want to. But if you're playing with the lizard power, you get potentially access to all the other forest locations that aren't being played in the game by the other players, and then only you can use them. Now, there are some very powerful forest locations that you could potentially not be playing with that you could get access to. Like there's one that lets you activate 2 green production cards in your city. If that's not in the game for the other players, that means it gets to be shuffled into a face-down deck, and you could potentially get to play with it. Now, it may not happen at a very opportune time, but potentially you'd get access to 4 forest locations that only you have access to. This is why this is the best ability that you could potentially get. There's another one that I really like that you could potentially not be playing with, too, where you get to discard 3 cards for 3 resources of your choice. That's awesome. Get rid of 3 cards you don't want for 3 resources of your choice. That's an easy way of playing cards in the beginning of the game very easily. That's one way to do it. And if it wasn't in the game and it was in this face-down deck with the lizard's power, you could potentially be the only one that gets to activate it, which is still only one time during the course of the game at most. But still, that's amazing. This is the best critter power I've ever seen. It's my favorite. And hey, the lizards, let's face it, the lizards have always been my favorite critter from Everdell. So thank you guys for watching this video. What was your favorite? critter powers. Let me know in the comments if you have a favorite critter power you like to play with, or a few that you really like the most. Go ahead and let me know in the comments. And don't forget to leave me a like if you guys liked the critter powers that I chose as my top 10. And I'll see you guys again next time. Bye.